Welcome to eTown Links, a virtual resource for area businesses working to adapt to the effects of COVID-19. My name is Matthew Fritz, and I'm an associate professor of music from Elizabethtown College, and I'm one of your co-moderators for today. Kelly Fuddy is my esteemed partner in crime. Kelly?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kelly Fuddy. I am currently providing interim chamber staff support in the absence of an executive director. If you know a great candidate, send them our way. I'm looking forward to this great session today with some really great experts on helping you position yourself financially and in all ways for success in this crazy time. But I know that those of you out there, business owners in our community, are extremely resilient and are adapting already. And so I'm very proud of that. And I'm excited that we have this resource today to offer more to you. I'm going to let Matt take it back over and introduce our wonderful guests and look forward to some Q&As. So as this session goes on, know that it will be recorded for the future. And you can use the Q&A box down there at the bottom of your Zoom. If you can't find it, just click somewhere and usually it appears. Send us a question. We can't see you, so if you're in your jammies, stay there, that's fine. Just send us your questions and we'd like to ask these wonderful guests that we have today what they have to say about it. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Kelly. So today's topic, as she said, will be recorded and will be available online at the eTown Chamber's website. Our topic today is sustainability, how to position for post-COVID-19 success. A number of businesses in eTown have been closed for quite some time. As the businesses reopen, they'll need not only to reassure their customers with clear signage and adherence to health recommendations, they'll also need to think outside the box to find new ways to reinvigorate their customer base. Our panelists, Mary Heltszel and Cathy Bonser, have a number of practical ideas to inspire you to take the next steps in reopening your business. Mary Heltszel is a senior VP at Stoifel Investment Services and recently named to Forbes America's Top Women Wealth Advisors list for 2020. As a financial advisor with 26 years of experience, she has achieved a distinguished career in the financial services industry based on two key principles: putting her clients' interests first and providing exceptional personal service. A Pennsylvania native, Mary grew up in York and went to school in York. She's been very involved with past boards related to the arts and works diligently to assist with children's education. She's also involved with several community service organizations. Our second panelist, Cathy Bonser, is a certified SCORE mentor and the chair of the Lancaster-Lebanon Education Committee. She joined SCORE in 2018. She is also a court-appointed special advocate with CASA of Lancaster. She retired from Dent Supply Sorona in 2018. Cathy worked for Dent Supply Sorona for almost 10 years, most recently as a global product platform director. During her tenure at Dent Supply Sorona, she also led a global exploratory program in the field of digital dentistry. Prior to that, she had a 28-year career at the Eastman Kodak Company as a chemical engineer, advancing into sales, marketing, and global consumer product management. She held a variety of management positions, including Director of Global Manufacturing Strategy, GM and Vice President of Global Manufacturing Services, Vice President and Director of Corporate Business Transformation, and Vice President and General Manager of Global Market Operations Medical Imaging Division. Cathy holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemistry and Chemical Engineering from the University of Minnesota and an MBA in Marketing and Management from Rochester Institute of Technology. Welcome, our wonderful panelists.
Thank you, Matthew. So good morning, everyone, or afternoon, I guess we are. And it's really nice to be here today to talk to you about sustainability and how to position post-COVID-19 success. We have a lot of information that we'll breeze through with you today so that we can have time to engage in your questions and answers. All of this material will be available to you after the presentation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So we're really here to talk about how we deal with this situation in converting lemons into lemonade. And many of you are restarting. Some of you have been operating in this pandemic situation, but in all cases, it's been challenging on business overall. I've learned that pandemics in the past go away when we overcome fear and we adapt to the new normal of that pandemic environment. So thinking about overcoming fear and adapting will be part of our conversation here today. We're encouraging you to examine your business conditions, to plan realistically and plan now, and to use a systematic approach for business planning. And we're going to talk about that here today. Some decisions you will have to make are difficult, but it's important to move forward. Next slide. So as we go through today's discussion, we're going to talk about a pivot process for your business and encourage you to think through integrated planning. If we think about this three-legged stool, it's important to understand the marketing aspects of your business impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, the impacts on operations, and ultimately the impacts of all of those on your financials. As we operate going forward, we're doing it under an umbrella or stool seat here on safety and efficacy, because that changes the way we work. So by taking this three-legged stool approach, it'll help you really have integrated planning for success in your business. Next slide, please. So as we go through today's discussion, we're going to touch on these bubbles here. The green bubbles really are sales and marketing components, and the blue are operations components. As you adapt your business in this new normal, it will have impacts that affect your financial planning. And cash is king, and there's no time like the present to make sure you're planning well and addressing your cash flow management so that you can operate healthily going forward. We encourage you to look at your current financials, where they were before the pandemic hit. Understand market trends, and there are many of them that are changing the way we do business today and the way we do business going forward. Whether it's online shopping or online ordering, virtual and mobile communications, digital pay and contactless payments, employee health and how you address that, remote work, online entertainment, and telehealth. These are trends that will impact your businesses, and you want to think through them. The regulations for COVID-19, of course, impact how you operate your business, how you protect your employees, and how you protect your customers. And we encourage you to be true to your company purpose. You may need to adapt it as you come out of the COVID-19 situation, but that provides a great foundation. Demand forecast is one of the key things that we're going to touch on. So as you have changes in customers, different customers, less customers, customers buying differently, will impact your demand forecast. That will impact your supply chain, and an iterative business approach between that will help you get to healthy operations as you move forward. As a result of going through each of these steps, you will have a revised business plan or revised financials. And it's important to go through that process and move forward with your eyes wide open. Next slide, please. So I'll go through these slides quickly because I know there's a lot of discussion about them. But there are guidelines, and when you receive the presentation, we have links to all the resources for these items listed here that can guide you as you operate and go forward. The guidelines are impacting how we operate. So following key safety measures, leaning on and looking for industry-specific guidelines will help you as you operate. We are in Lancaster County moving into the green phase, so that is planning to think about. The sources for PPE, hand sanitizers, thermometers, the Recovery Lancaster has offered those kits and some of those components for you. Sources for cleaning solutions, sanitizers, and disinfectants are hard to come by. SCORE Lebanon Lancaster has prepared a referral list of suppliers that we've talked to that have materials available. You may want to partner with like groups or other business peers of yours to buy in groups that can help you get supplies a little bit more effectively, but we'll provide that information for you. One thing about this picture, we're wearing masks is the new normal. Social distancing is the new normal. And it's sometimes hard to know who that person is you're talking to. So this is a case where a pediatric nurse actually put her picture on a pin so that her patients could know who she was without a mask. It took away some of the intimidation. So creativity is a theme you're going to hear about as Mary and I go through this today, because we need to think differently and we need to respond to the new normal. Next slide, please. So there's a series of steps that we encourage you to look into with your businesses. So following federal and local guidelines, staying up to date on the changes, having a safety plan for your business that protects your operation, your employees, and your customers. You need to have somebody identified that is the responsible owner for safety practices within your business. It may be you yourself, but making sure that you've got someone accountable for that. Education is key for employees and customers. So there's a number of things to follow and tools provided by the CDC that can help you with education. It's important as we move forward through this that we maintain a culture of caring. The more you empathize and care for your employees and your customers, the more it will reflect on the culture of your business and the business you'll be able to endure and retain. We talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but preparing for an accordion-like process. You may need to open and close as the COVID virus stabilizes. So think through that so that you're prepared to address those kinds of changes. Next slide, please. So let me move a little bit into how do you think through some of the marketing aspects of your business. You will have changes in customers. Your target market might change, and it will impact your revenue, and it will impact your product mix. So taking a hard look at who your customers were, they may or may not come back, or they may delay the time at which they come back. You also might have new customers that you can attract into your business. So an evaluation of your customer mix is key. Value proposition is important to keep top of mind. So making sure that your product or service, how it needs to change to sell to new customers and to sell more to existing customers is important to think through. Your points of difference may change as the market changes. So consider ways to safely augment your product or service so that you can meet the needs of your customers, and you can do so preferentially versus competitors in the market as well. So these are some quick questions for you to think about in terms of customers and value proposition. Mary, do you want to talk about the next slide, please?
Yes, next slide. So when you're looking at these pictures, they seem a little crazy, but sometimes crazy is innovative. And you have to think of innovative ways to keep your business to all the rules and regulations. Moving target, they're going to constantly be in motion. So you need to think about, how can I get my customers come back? But most importantly, to get them to come back that they feel safe, because if they feel safe, they're going to come back again, because they're as anxious to restore normalcy in their life as you are to restore normalcy in your business. So I live in York, and we've been open for a couple weeks in the green phase. And the biggest thing that I noticed is some restaurants just took a lot of furniture out, but they didn't do anything to make the restaurant not look empty. But some of the restaurants have made themselves look very full by using plants or things that, give that impression that, there's not things missing, but at the same point in time, you look at it and you say, oh, wow, that plant is stopping me from getting too close to the next table or moving my chair back or doing the sorts of things that are going to be make somebody in the other table feel uncomfortable. I have a lot of clients that, own hair salons or things like that. I just took my dog to be groomed, and I really found the creativity of how these different locations have of moving people through. Everybody has a different idea, and the biggest thing is they have signage, they have all the things that they need to be able to direct you, that it's comfortable. It's you have your mask on, you do what you need to do to comply with their regulations, but you feel safe. So that helps immensely. Next slide, please.
So in terms of bringing your product to market, there can be a number of really creative things you can think of here. So are there alternatives, ways to bring your product to market? I don't know how well you can see this picture, but in this picture, this is a store down in Delaware, and they offered to personally shop for their customers. So they reached out to their customers. They said, we'll shop for you, and set up a way to connect with their customers. So thinking how to engage differently, creativity is truly key as you operate in this new normal. There may be things, if you were online, great. You may want to promote that further. You may want to transact in a different channel. So things that you could think about could be, how do you partner with another like business and maybe sell your products there? An example one of my colleagues uses is a florist that wasn't able to be open made bouquets of flowers that were available through a bakery, and the bakery was open. So they could promote flowers during that time and start to build, number one, a new channel and a way to keep selling products while they were waiting for the situation to change for them. So creative solutions will really get you to a different place, but you have to be open to it. In terms of sales, how can the sales process adapt to the new environment? Consider virtual appointment shopping, which I shared with you just a minute ago. Self-selling and picking up. There's a number of things that you can do differently in terms of sales that can help you meet the needs of this new normal environment, but help you promote your products and drive sales differently. So being creative is really encouraged here. Next slide, please. Go ahead, Mary.
Well, I was thinking, looking at the competitor issue and looking at how to take your business to a new level. Over in York, we have a florist that, of course, they made a lot of money and did a lot of their business through weddings. So they took the back end of their shop, which could accommodate wedding party of about 25. They set out an outside gazebo on the property for the ceremony, and now they're doing the weddings there. So it's kind of interesting how, necessity has become the mother of invention. So they didn't want to lose their business that contributes so much to their cash flow. So they did something a little different. So now, if you get the flowers there and they have somebody that brings food in and all those things, you can have a very small wedding. And they did a very good job of focusing on that addition to their business through Facebook, through their Twitter account, through Instagram, through all the different avenues that are out there to reach the public. So you have to look at, how can I revise my business model to make it work in this scenario? And, who knows, that could be a whole new part of their business. I see a lot of restaurants being very, very creative on how they're doing their deliveries or contacting their clients. It works very well. So, and as for partnering with other businesses that are like businesses, it's easier to do, especially if one business has a bigger location, maybe partner that way, bring a new product in. The favorite one I like to talk about is there's a restaurant in New York that was doing chef dinners. So the chef would teach the people how to make the meal, and you could sit and have the meal afterwards and stuff. And it was becoming very popular, and then COVID hit. And it was a fairly new business. It was only about 6 months to 9 months old. And this was a huge hit for them for a new business. So what they did was they contacted the people that were coming to these things regularly. And then again, through Facebook and various social media avenues, they started doing these cooking shows again. But what they did was you came down, you went to their store, you picked up all the ingredients, and it was pre-measured and that sort of thing. And then you went on to the Zoom meeting and you learned how to cook the meal. So they're doing wine tastings that way. They're doing chef offerings that way. It's very, very creative. They still have the cash flow coming in. They're getting their name out there because everybody thought it was such a great idea. So it's amazing what you can do when you want to. Next slide, please. So by doing those kind of things, you're branding your company very much to be the innovative company. So, you know, the one thing that COVID has done is has forced a lot of people, doesn't matter what the age group, but to become very savvy in how they're using social media, and using Zoom and using the computer in ways that we didn't think of before. Well, we may have thought of it, but the mass majority of people didn't use it. And now we're being moved into that direction of using these things, and that's not going to suddenly go away. So we need to use all these great tools that we have as a way to communicate the changes. I've noticed a lot of hair salons, all sorts of businesses are using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any social media aspect that they have as a very innovative way to constantly let their customer know that this is how we're handling this week. That makes it easier for the changes when they take place for you to be able to adapt. And it works very well because, you know, your customer again is going to know you're really keeping up to date with everything. You're ahead of the curve with all of these changes that are taking place, and it helps with that safety issue that people are going to be more prone to come out and come to your business and purchase something, maybe have dinner, get their hair done. It's one of those things. It is amazing to me how many people that I've spoken to, hair salons, all sorts of businesses are starting to see that wealth of people coming back into their businesses and starting to use their services. And that's a big, significant issue. Next slide, please. So this is just some examples of things that you put outside of your store. But again, I think social media is going to reach more people, encourage the people that are in your store when they're there. Hey, don't forget to like me on Facebook, or don't forget to, you know, say what a great experience you have and how you felt. I'll use this example again. I had my dogs finally groomed. I was doing it myself, so they looked pretty terrible. And so I finally got them into the groomer. And I was so impressed that when I got home last night, I took pictures of the dog and posted it on their Facebook page. It's amazing the number of people that already responded to my Facebook post. Oh, that looks great. The dogs look great. You know, I have to call them. They're going to get new customers based on who I posted that to, because my network will have that show up. So the effectiveness of what's out there, using the tools the right way, can really help to make your business more diversified.
Mary, let me jump in on this one just a little bit. These examples here kind of show what's good and what's not good. So the one in the middle, actually that company took a government thing, downloaded it from the web and put it in the window. There was no engagement with the customer that was inviting, or we're taking time to prepare and we'll get back to you. The one on the right had like 10 different communications. So it was very confusing as to what the customer should do in that situation. And on the one on the left gave them kind of a status of where they were and said, we'll be back to you. So communications, how you communicate to your customers is so, so key. Be consistent across all your media choices, be embracing and inviting, and let them know all the things that you're doing to make it a safe environment for you to engage with them. The way you communicate can be a clear differentiator for your business versus the other like businesses in the area. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to migrate into operations planning. So all the things that we touched on briefly for you to think about relative to marketing, the customer, and so forth, those things impact your operations. So making sure you review the workflow, how you deliver your business on the new demand forecast. So that's an important thing to look at and understand. Look at your inventory, assess how much you have on hand, and plan accordingly. Inventory is great to have to give you the flexibility to operate, but it also can consume a lot of cash. And when cash is king now, you need to be careful of that. So inventory assessment and planning is key. Your suppliers. You know, everybody's going through this situation, so be proactive where you can. Qualify alternate sources of supply. We all know about the grocery store shelves that are empty of cleaning and sanitizing equipment or supplies. So making sure that you've got alternate source of supply so that you can keep your business running consistently. Update your supply agreements, strive for preferential customer status with them is important. Regular updates on your forecast to them can keep them aware of what your demand is going to be when. And review the supply situation on when you can restart product sales. So making sure that all those things are linked is really key. You can consider lead times, so review where you are on those. Make sure you've got that set and communicated. Make sure you've evaluated your capacity and throughput in the new safe work practice environment so that you've really got your capacity understood. You may want to assess make versus buy. Things you made before, it might be easier for you to buy them. So be open in your thinking about how you operate. And review group purchasing options, which we talked about earlier, where you can band together with other like businesses to get better availability and pricing. Now's the time to consider doing that. Next slide, please. Employee planning, you're well into all of this. We all know what's been going on with employees, and the biggest message across this time is to be empathetic. This whole environment's been hard on everyone. So how you treat your employees, how you make them comfortable in the workplace is really important and critical to your success as you go forward. Map out your restart scenario or your change in operations if you've continued to operate. Understand what your worst case is. Make sure you understand what you can afford. Bring back people as you can afford to bring them back, and operate your business safely and healthily. The forecast for FTEs that you prepare to restart or that you monitor in an ongoing basis is important. Prioritize people, right people in the right positions. Also cross-training, maybe a way to change the way you work, cross-train multiple people on the critical areas in particular, but across the board, because you may need that flexibility of the workforce if someone gets exposed to COVID and you have to quarantine them for a while, or you have a situation. Cross-training can help you maintain the flexibility you need as you go forward. Next slide, please. The third operations area is really back office planning. And here, there's a number of things that we've encouraged you to think about. So managing your accounts payable. Remember, we're trying to encourage you to manage cash as you go through this process. So if you split your payables into categories, things that you must pay, wages, taxes, they can shut you down if you don't pay. Make sure you manage those. Vendors who value your business might negotiate longer terms, your rent, your lease. You may negotiate with banks. Be open and flexible. Do not hesitate to ask. And anything where you can buy something somewhere else, that would be your third category to manage in terms of accounts payable. In terms of receivable, we encourage you to drive towards management of cash here so that you don't get into credit situations. So be open about how you receive payments, get cash, checks. Automatic payments can be good versus minimizing term credit and things like that. From a bookkeeping perspective, keeping careful records if you have a PPP loan or EIDL requirements, we encourage you to do really good bookkeeping here so that you're prepared to strive for forgiveness if you're in the PPP loan situation. Understand liability protection, review what your insurance covers, making sure that you're aware of that is important. Negotiate lease terms. Don't be shy about that. I talked about a separate bank account on PPP, and then in terms of taxes, work with your tax advisor to minimize your liabilities. So be very open about thinking through these things. Next slide, please. Mary?
When you're thinking about the financial planning side, you have a great tool to go back and look at your past history of when you were slow, when your sales were slow, and what things were slow in that time frame. So, think about, is January normally a slow time for me because of winter? What was the number of staff that I had during that time? What was the number of sales that I had during that time? How was my inventory during that time? That's a great way to look back into your history and be able to figure out exactly how to start to gauge this new time frame that you're in, because you're going to be starting like in that slow period again and then building your way back up. Then look at your cash position. If you have to, go to the bank and say, look, I need some cash to have in reserve, and not that I necessarily want to touch it, but it's going to give me the peace of mind for the first couple of weeks that I'm going to be okay. Focus in on your balance sheet, both your personal and your business balance sheet. Make sure you have enough funding sources out there, and make sure that you know what your profit and loss statement looks like. Try to make sure you're doing the things in your business that are going to give you some of the better profitability. I know many restaurants in the New York area, if you go in and look at their menu, because they can't use the old menus for cleanliness and to keep things sanitary, they've come out with new menus that are literally two sides of one sheet. And you don't hand it back to them. You just kind of let it lay on the table and then it gets thrown out. But the advantage is that they can redo the menu and they can narrow down a little bit what they need to buy and do the cross training. The one restaurant that I know, they actually had a person on their wait staff who was a pastry chef. So instead of going out and buying their pastries or their desserts that they needed to buy, they actually brought that person in to do the pastries. And, you know, I hate to say it, but they ended up being nicer because of the fact that it's homemade and it's, you know, really, really fresh. And I had the business owner actually tell me that they're selling more pastries now. So it's kind of interesting. She's only making about 2 or 3 things, but it's the fact that it's different. It's changing all the time, and it's creative. And then get your plan together. As demand picks up, you can again look back and you can start to diversify, maybe add something in different. I know some places have been running specials on certain things. Maybe they have a build-up inventory that they need to move along. Instead of it sitting in their back room not doing anything, at least they can sell it. So look at those things. Try to think what your risk factors are. Well, the risk factors are if you suddenly have an increase in COVID in your area, they could possibly start, you know, closing things again or restricting things again, maybe go back into yellow or something like that. Have your plan in place as to how you're going to handle that. It's going to make a huge difference. Most importantly, though, figure out what your break-even point is, because it's going to help you with figuring out what you need to buy, who you need to bring into work, your cost of your utilities and all those things, all your outside expenses. It helps to make a difference as to what your price is going to be. That's the other advantage of this menu being on one piece. If your cost for your product is increasing, then you're going to have, then you have the ability to go into your computer, change the prices to make it above the break-even point and put it out new. That's a huge advantage. You don't have to be locked into that menu, or you're putting a little white out on the menu, or you're doing those kinds of things, which makes people realize, oh boy, they increased the price. If you're giving them something fresh and new every time they come in, they may not notice that the price went up. So it gives you the advantage of having some diversification a little bit. Next slide, please. You constantly want to assess what's going on. So it's going to, again, everything's a moving target now. So the person that's going to be the most diverse is the one that's going to be constantly monitoring everything that's going on with their business, what their cash flow looks like, what's going on with their expenses. You know, if there's a, we saw during this whole COVID crisis, the chicken on our menu, a little change, and we can address that easily. But we want to make sure that we're constantly looking at those things to make sure that we're keeping cash available, everything that we need to do. Stay very close in contact with what's going on in the news, because there's announcements today that there probably will be some sort of a second stimulus going out, and exactly what that looks like, how that's going to help businesses. So we want to make sure that we're always monitoring everything new that comes out. You want to make sure that you're using all the different availabilities that are out there to your advantage. SCORE, financial advisors, the banks, anything, the chambers, anything that you can think of where you can get access to information that's going to be accurate. Because I'm sure through this whole process we've seen that, if you flip TV stations or you read something and then you pick up another thing to read, there's different information in there. So we want to make sure the information we're getting is as accurate as possible. Next slide, please. So where do we go from here? Well, the biggest thing is we constantly are monitoring, we're constantly reevaluating. So many of us in business got very stale with how we did business sometimes because it was just the same thing every day. And you didn't need to do a lot of creativity and that sort of thing. I think we've all realized now that that's going to be the thing that we must do. So make sure you're always reevaluating what's going on with your business. That's the safest way to play. Monitor your cash flow, monitor your profit and loss, monitor your expenses. Just constantly keep monitoring everything. Talk to people that are in like businesses with yours. You know, if you have somebody that's a friend that operates the same kind of business with you, they may be doing something that you didn't think of, and vice versa. You know, I think sometimes we got so focused on, well, we don't want to help the competition, that we now need to realize that we need to work together, whether we're competition or not. We need to work together. Be bold. Make sure you're being as able to make switches and changes as fast as possible, because you're going to have to do that. And make sure that you're staying faithful to what your original mission statement was as to why you opened your business. So are you still keeping the focus on your customer? Are you still keeping the focus on your employee? Are you still giving the kind of value to your product that you've always given? Those are all very, very important issues. Next slide.
Oh. Well, we mentioned SCORE earlier in here. So SCORE is an organization in Lancaster and Lebanon. We have 80 mentors that provide business guidance to small businesses. Whether you're a startup or you're already operating, we're here to help you. So don't hesitate to contact SCORE. It's a free service to you. There's no charge, and certainly can be there to help you through this situation. Next slide. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for participating. I'm sure we could take questions now.
Yeah, I have some questions loaded up here for you, ladies. All right. So, Mary, you just mentioned at the end about that access to accurate information, and you're right. It's like, you know, over the last 20 years, I used to think, you know, you had to go to a librarian, right, to find information that was hard to find. Now, librarians have a very different job, which is to help you weed through all the excess of information, right, and find something that's actually valuable. So that is really like the goal of this exact program that we're presenting right now, is to say, hey, there's so much out there. Don't waste your time, you know, trying to weed through it all. Let us do that for you. And I know that SCORE is doing a lot of that. I know that Recovery Lancaster is doing a lot of that. And our chamber certainly too. Please, everybody, try to stay in touch. We're trying to filter out that info for you. I know that Recovery Lancaster is having some roundtables for unique industries, and they have a whole guidance page on for each industry. So I think that's a really good point you brought up about, you know, don't necessarily just see everyone as your competitors. Let's say, hey, these are, we can all learn from each other and lift each other up at a time when our industries are just kind of turning on their heads in some cases. I have a question for you about the liability piece. You had touched on it. I think it was you, Cathy, closer to the end. A question that keeps coming up in our presentations from different angles is about what kind of liability business owners are going to have if someone is traced back to exposure in their store. One situation would be perhaps customer. Another one would be an employee, and considering workman's comp and things like that. So that's something that keeps coming up. Can either of you speak to that concern and how people should consider communicating with their employees about that, and protecting themselves.
I'll make a couple of comments on that, Kelly. A couple things. One is there are guidelines, both state and federal guidelines on how you should be operating safely. As a business owner, you're responsible for understanding those and operating within those guidelines. So number one, I encourage you to do that. The second thing that I would say to you is to check the associations. So just like Recovery Lancaster is doing with these like-type businesses, you can follow guidelines they're using for starting up and managing things correctly there. Your industry associations can also provide you guidance. The most important thing, though, I would say is to talk with your insurance agent and to talk with your attorney. So making sure that you understand what insurance you have and how you can, what you're covered for, so that you're practicing appropriately. Don't hesitate to ask those questions. Go and get answers. Okay?
Great. Thank you so much. Kathy, any thoughts on that, Mary?
Really, it's outside. I just know what we're doing in my company, and when I have a client come in, we take their temperature. They actually must wear a mask, and I wear a mask, and they also sign a liability consent that, you know, they are not going to hold us liable if they would have COVID or anything like that. After they leave, we go through the office that they're in and we sanitize everything. I've always been a pretty crazy hand sanitizer person myself. So this is stuff that we've always done in the past. And so we're just still doing it. You know, my office has, when you walk in the door, there's always a huge bottle of hand sanitizer sitting at the door. And there's normally one somewhere around on my desk. And I have a spray bottle of sanitizer I keep on my desk also. So, you know, it's not that I'm a fanatic, but I think in this environment, the safer and more careful you are, you really lower your chances. And it's not only for myself. I've said to many clients that I work with, it's not that I'm concerned about myself personally. I'm concerned about my family, and I'm concerned about you. So.
Absolutely. I know that it was really helpful to me, some of the things you brought up that I didn't even notice are making me feel safer. Like for instance, when I have to go to CVS to pick up a prescription, you know, they have the tape on the floor, but they also have like literally this huge like gallon pump thing of hand sanitizer that's right there. So every time I, you know, use the credit card thing or whatever, I feel very safe that I can quickly wash my hands. So, you know, if they're not washing,
actually you have fingertip pieces to put on your fingertip. So if you're punching numbers in or something like that, you have the ability to protect yourself further. So my mask is like a scarf that it looks like a turtleneck, and I have it on all the time except for right now. But I keep it on my neck all the time, and that way if I go out, I don't have to worry, did I remember my mask? It's always right there. I pull it up. I go do what I need to do. When I'm in a safe zone, I take it off. I mean, it's just easy that way.
Thanks, Mary. For either of you, what of a question coming in here, what kind of guidance has OSHA been offering in terms of workplace safety that are highlights people should be paying attention to?
I can make a couple of comments on that. OSHA guidelines are pretty specific to workplace operation. I don't know if I'm causing feedback here or not, but one of the things that I would encourage you to be aware of is if you've gone out and you have purchased N95 masks, that is an OSHA regulated device. And so there are OSHA guidelines on fit related to those masks that you need to be careful of. We can recommend some people that will do audits and fit testing if you need to do that in your workplace. It's that type of support I would encourage you to reach out to, particularly around N95 masks, which people have gone out and purchased thinking they're safer, but they are a regulated device at a different level. Other OSHA guidelines can be specific to your business operation, and then you need to look more broadly at the guidelines overall.
Great, thank you. I loved the pieces you shared. I think it was so valuable to hear the creative ideas, not staying on the positive, like, okay, here's a challenge. What are we gonna do to turn lemons into lemonade? I saw a picture of a cafe or a restaurant that was opening back up that was putting teddy bears on every other chair, right? So that you can't sit on those chairs. And it just, you know, gave people that warm and welcome feeling, was saying, oh, I see what they're doing to keep me safe. I was just wondering if either of you had any other great stories. I know Catherine Score had been sharing some through their social media of just really creative challenges, especially in those industries where market trends are changing the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to say that I am so impressed with the creativity that's out there, where businesses are thinking about how to operate their business differently, and where they do it in a way that's embracing and comforting of the client is really key. So an example is when you have the social distancing markers, you could put duct tape on the floor, or you could put a sign on the floor that says, "You're almost there. We're so excited to have you here on the next one." You can reach out and use things you're doing to really be inviting and welcoming for clients. That is an approach that we've heard done that's really creative and really novel. I mentioned about the idea of co-promoting your business through another business. So where you can do that, like I mentioned, the one about selling your flowers at a bakery, where you can partner to do that can be a way to build a new channel, to increase new customer awareness, can be a way to drive incremental sales. So people are thinking creatively about how to go about their business, and that makes it a lot of fun.
The one that I can think of is a candy store that suddenly had bakery goods and suddenly had ice cream and suddenly had snow cone type machines, and they, you know, they just dramatically diversified their product scale. And when the people would come in to maybe get a loaf of bread or some of those things, they would immediately go, "Oh, look, I didn't think," you know, and they have their somebody with them, "Oh, look at the candy. Oh, look at this." And next thing you know, they've sold, you know, a lot of additional items that they didn't plan or wouldn't have probably had that person come in the store to even buy. So that was a big thing. I know a friend of mine had a salon, and for months during this whole process, he was putting, you know, ads on Facebook or different social media sources about, you know, oh, we're going to be doing this or we're going to be doing that. And as they did the remodeling to get ready for all this, I mean, he took his salon and just totally revamped the look. It looks very modern, even though there's plexiglass floor to ceiling between each one of the chairs. It looks so attractive and so beautiful that it's inviting and it makes you feel safe. And so I've talked to him and he said they're busy. They're very, very busy. So, you know, the groomer was the same way. You know, I talked to them yesterday and they said, "I can't tell you, we're actually going to start working on Sundays. We're that busy." So it's amazing.
Another story that I'd heard of that really touched me was related to a salon. And while business was down before they had opened, they sent their clients a small bottle of root cover-up. so that while the people were not able to get to the salon, they were offering something to let the client know they were thinking of them and to give them a solution. So doing things like that builds incredible loyalty. Those clients that got that aren't going to any other salon ever. They're there for good. So you know, if you think and work differently, you can embrace your customers and increase customer loyalty beyond where you've been before.
And that's
Thank
true.
you both. Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, I was going to say, you know, I did that myself. We were emailing different news sources of different articles that we felt were appropriate, literally every day, every other day at the very beginning. Then we dropped down to once a week. We were on the phone constantly. In fact, I had a couple of my clients say, you know, you don't need to call me so often. And then if I didn't call and left an extra couple days go by, then when I called them, they said, oh, we thought you forgot about us. I mean, you just don't know what that perfect touch is going to be, but it's the fact that you made the touch. That's the important part. And that makes such a huge difference in keeping that loyalty of your client.
Thank you so much, and Mary and Catherine. That as you say, the importance of that personal touch brings up another question that I've encountered both as a customer and hearing from different businesses, and that's the idea of touch that we all seem to be a little nervous about with the possibility of transmission. So I'm just wondering about one of the things I've witnessed quite a bit is many businesses are supposedly set up for contactless payment, but maybe they aren't, and they're not even really sure if they are. But I think it's one of the things that's been slow to take off in this country. That I'm thinking about the downturn in business that really started before any of the official closings happened because of people's anxieties about the pandemic. What advice do you have to give to businesses as they're if they have not yet rolled out contactless payment or are thinking about it?
Well, I definitely think they should think about it. You know, cash is one of the dirtier things to transmit disease. In fact, I find myself asking people if they actually take cash because so many businesses are starting not to do that. So I would make sure that they set up that capability in their business because that's where the trend is going. And I think it'll put them in a better stead with clients if they have that capability.
And I've seen
yeah, please.
I've seen quite a few that actually will wipe down your credit card with an antiseptic if they take it. And when they hand it back to you, they've wrapped around your receipt around the credit card, so that way, and they'll say to you point blank, "We've wiped down your credit card. We feel it's safe and clean." You know, so there's a lot of ways to handle a lot of those issues.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much.
Okay, as we kind of get ready to wrap up here, I did have one more thing I wanted to ask you. I wanted to remind everyone that Catherine had mentioned earlier that she has a list of suppliers that do have resources and availability for particularly cleaning supplies and things like that you might want to band together for. She's going to share that with us. That will be sent out to all of our chamber members via email so that you have that list. And thank you so much for that, Catherine from SCORE.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you to both of our panelists and all of our participants. Thank you also to the Elizabethtown Chamber of Commerce and Elizabethtown College for their collaborative effort to bring this vital resource to our business community. Kelly, can you tell us what's coming up next?
I certainly can, Matt. Thanks. Next week, July 1st, we're going to be taking a week off, anticipating a lot of people celebrating the holiday in whatever way we celebrate that. I can't believe it's already almost the 4th of July. Then following that, we have some more great conversations coming up. We're going to be doing the state of real estate in July. We're going to be having a conversation with our borough and municipalities. So there'll be lots of great opportunity for questions for them there. On July 29th, we're going to have a conversation with our superintendent and some other people from the school district. And that will be the day after they release their plan for reopening schools. So I'm sure there will be a lot of questions to go around there. So anyone can participate. You don't have to be a chamber member. Please share them. We have also in August coming up a conversation with our legislators. So Ryan Allman, our state senator, and our two state representatives, Dave Hickernell and Mindy Fee, will all be there to answer any questions that you have for them on August 12th. 2 dates are not filled yet, but we're continuing to work on finding some great speakers. And as these sessions evolve, we're learning more about what you want to know about. So thank you for sharing with us.
Great, thank you so very much, Kelly. And everyone can just ignore the scrolling credits here at the end. At least we're missing a couple of dates because we are so dynamic. Everything's coming in at light speed. We can't even keep up with it. So we're excited that you're with us today. And thank you again to our panelists and to my co-host, Kelly, and to our man behind the scenes, Brian Helm, for keeping us connected. We appreciate it so very much. Have a great day and stay safe, everybody.